Welcome back to some more World and Economica. So last time what happened was they thought they were going to win the stock market contest, but sadly they ended up in second place. So however, aside of receiving some money from the debt collector, they were offered the task to rack up about the minimum amount of money as possible to pay off the other collectors that were harassing Toyohama. But TLDR all that. So let's continue reading. Afterwards, when Saralt was about to leave, he reminded me about Lisa, but I had no intention of blaming Lisa for this. Same with Hagana. That was why, in case Lisa was waiting outside for us to finish talking and came home with an innocent look on her face, Hagana and I wouldn't say anything in particular. The cash Toyama had brought was still here, so what happened here was obvious. But while we ate dinner as we always did, I would report that we had lost at the investment contest. Lisa would smile and say, "That's too bad." I would take out the 50,000 mules in prize money though. And after reporting that the debt had been paid, she would look a bit uncomfortable but smile and say, "Thank you." Hagan and I did not discuss this at all. Yeah, exactly. Just look at her face. What needed to be done and how was completely decided. In that case, all was left was to do it, to keep going until things went right. But for me, there was also the situation with Barton. Hidden from Hagana, I stealthily looked over the mail from Barton and my eyes darted over the contents. There were comforting words congratulating me on the second place finish. Moreover, there were words praising the rather impressive judgment in each successive trade regardless of the result. After that, there were words confirming that what we discussed before. I hesitated for a brief moment before I wrote a response in one stroke. I certainly want to take you up on that offer, but I'd like just a bit more time. Barton's reply came swiftly. Was there a problem? I reported that there was a problem that I had to resolve at all costs. His response was received about 2 minutes later. In proportion to the time, it was perhaps the shortest response thus far. More than happy to assist at any time. Thank you very much, I responded with sincerity to those words. From the next day on, it was the second coming of the investment contest, but the stakes were different. On top of that, this time around things were more complex, and the program would be used in the actual marketplace, where it hadn't yet been tested. Mistakes wouldn't be forgiven, indecision also wouldn't be forgiven. A 50% profit in a week was an insane level of performance. If leverage from margin trading was to be utilized, the hurdle would be reduced to 17%. But I didn't want to go through with 3 times the mental strain. The amount of capital was also something that could be disregarded. Will this work out? I don't know, you tell me. Is it really going to be easygoing? Hagana asked in a genuine manner. There is no other choice besides. While opening up the margin trading screen, I spoke. We've got leverage here too, you know. Huh? Well, you are here, aren't you? I forced out a laugh and Hagana pouted and turned away. Despite having no expression, her face was red and her lips showed her displeasure. Hagana and I immersed ourselves in trading. Lisa went about her usual business and supported us in a variety of ways. However, she did say that at least we should sleep separately. It seemed she caught on. While Hagana did respond tentatively, well, Lisa is kind of concerned, you know. In the end, after working in my room, she fell asleep at the desk from fatigue, and I ended up carrying her to bed. She did open her eyes at one point when I picked her up, but she relaxed and did nothing. Thank God of that. I thought she would kick his ass. While I thought about just telling her to move herself, that self-indulgence was way too cute and I couldn't get myself to say it. Along with the expression in her eyes, she was like a pedigree cat off its guard. Hagana and I did the best that we could. After hearing about our exploits, the people who were burdened by debt would come by with all sorts of provisions. Even Chris's father volunteered to be a night watchman. figuring that those moneymongers may try to do something while we slept. Day by day, we piled up those profits. Real trading was ruthlessly complex. Due to spending so much time with the investment contest, the program's accuracy was exceptionally off. But even then, Hagana updated in real time and Sorrel acted as backup, so I was able to go all out and chase after that alpha. Separately, they were very weak, but take 0.1% each time and pile up 1,000 times and it became 100%. For satellite probes heading into outer space, its propulsion came from the spewing of small ions. For people who dealt with the hardships and tribulations of the irrationality of society, the alchemists of the lunar surface were siphoning money away from their precious assets, almost like some sort of Robin Hood. With the size of the funds tripled through leverage, and with Hagana's support, we rushed through the battlefield. Extracting profits also brought about losses. Cutting down your foe would lead to yourself being cut down. As we were burdened with something amazing while fighting, people trading on the other side of the screen fought with real money off their own as well. I wondered whether wishing for our own success was like wishing for the failure of another me and another Hagana. Of another me and another Hagana on the other side of the screen. That wasn't some complete delusion. It was plenty implausible. But we had to go through with this. We had to continue desperately. But reality was lumbering and slow. It was the 5th day since we started trading. Saturday evening. Monday was the day Toyama needed to pay back the loan. The Sunday in between, there was only 1 day left. Total assets were at 720,000 moles. Only a 10% increase. On top of that, I was putting all my available funds in use. Due to continued trading after the investment contest, when trading was done, we really were literally out of breath. My body was at its limit. Hagana did not mention it to me, but once in a while she'd run to the toilet to throw up when her physical condition got particularly bad. There's still 1 more day left. Even though I didn't say anything, Hagana said it. That was one way to say that the situation was painful. And Lisa is? Hearing that, Hagana shook her head. She had spent the day with me immersed in trading, so there was no way of knowing. Speaking of which, up until recently, Hagana would ask me about Lisa while I was immersed in trading. At that time, I said that I didn't know, and Hagana would have a distantly displeased expression on her face, as if calling me useless trash. Oh jeez. Looking back, I could see that I'd come a long way. It occurred to me that I had spent a long time here. Going to the bathroom. Hagana said that and stood up. She headed to the bathroom unsteadily, so perhaps she needed to throw up again. I still had to run, so I couldn't always keep food down. Though Lisa had a worried expression on her face seeing me like this, she didn't say anything. Even if she said anything, we definitely had no intention of stopping, and she had no choice but to let us continue. Thus, Lisa started to pray often in the church. In the middle of the night when I headed to the bathroom, I would realize that there was someone in the church. When I looked, it was usually Lisa. She was praying fervently to the crucified bearded guy, known as Jesus. Perhaps this endeavor was a pointless struggle in the end? Was this where the strong became stronger? In Newton City's central station, I saw the statue of E.J. Rockberg, founder of the leading bank on the moon. It was also called a fool for throwing himself into investing, and the result of that unbelievable effort was the elevation of his status to what it was currently. Will such good fortune not pay us a visit? I wondered what was going on as I became assailed by all these pessimistic thoughts. I thought it was impossible as we proceeded, but it really was impossible. I didn't want to listen to such an obvious conclusion. Just 80,000 moles more. No, what I desired was 100,000 moles. If living expenses and various other things weren't taken care of, the townspeople won't be able to pay off their debts and will fall victim to the moneymongers, who were licking their lips in anticipation. On the last day, will we be able to gain enough in profits? Short of a miracle, it was impossible. A miracle. At that moment, I became aware of a fragment of that miracle. Hal had been thinking. Hagana said that as she came back from the bathroom. Okay, what were your thoughts? Though she came back from the bathroom, the area around her mouth looked a bit wet. Unless she washed her face, I knew right away that something was up. I think we have no choice but to narrow it down to one stock and risk it all. There's not enough time. Hagana went over everything that had happened up until now, so we're doing the same thing like we did with the contest. Oh boy. Naturally, that failed during the investment contest. Well, like I said, it's like, like what the previous dialogue said, it's 50-50. On top of that, this time the marketplace wasn't like the investment contest, where the guidelines and rules were clear. There were no obvious clues to go by, and within the current framework, we had to nail a 10% profit from out of nowhere. If that was possible, we should have been able to do it from the beginning. On top of that, said gamble did not work during the investment contest. Thus, Hagana's words weren't very inspired. But instead of responding to her words, I simply said this. I'm gonna head out for a bit. Huh? Hal? Where? It might just work out. I didn't answer as I stood up. With the computer in hand, I faced my room. Hagana wanted to follow me, but her body was already at its limit, and she stayed seated, unable to get up quickly enough. Just say something to Lisa for me, if you don't mind. I said that from the hallway as I turned away from the room with the computer tucked under my arm. Hal! I heard Hagana's voice, but I ignored it as I ran up the stairs to the second floor, then heading towards the third floor and outside. Outside, twilight was falling. The real action was about to happen in Newton City. I opened the computer and sent a mail off to Barton. Can you meet up? Immediately, a response came. Certainly I can. Let's meet at the Royal Central Hotel. I closed the computer and tossed it in my bag. And then, mustering what little strength I had, I ran at full tilt through the night-filled town. Ah, another meeting with Barton, huh? I ran through the dazzling nightscape of Newton City. From their perspective, redeveloping the poor districts probably meant nothing to them. 80,000 to 100,000 moles? That was something we could deal with. If you were foolish enough to be ruined by losing that much, you didn't belong on the moon in the first place. That's what I thought in the beginning. But living in Lisa's church and trading alongside Hagana, there was something that I came to understand. The connections between others won't change because of money. In the case of lying on Lisa's lap, if I could have that for 50,000 moles, I might have paid. If that were the case, what about that night when Hagana listened to me talk about my dream while I held her hand under the covers? How much was that worth? Once Hagana could only see me as trash, showing no hope or much of anything in her facial expressions. Now she's come to showing me her smile. How much was that? And then thinking about Hagana, I imagined that it was the same for the people of the town and their families. Chris and her father were the same, though in the end I hadn't seen Chris's mother even once. I'd imagine it would be an ordinary one-episode story that I didn't care to hear about. I ran through Newton City. I ran through the moon's richest area, being pulled along by the thread of fortune. One big trade is pulled along by a different trade, which then takes the form of big profits. That was the last thing I aimed at in the investment contest. And if that manifests in the marketplace, then naturally it should happen in reality too. All of it was how people carried out their lives, how people were influenced. So all the good fortune I had encountered was being pulled along by a different bit of luck that I believed in as I headed towards it. And here he arrived at the hotel. The Royal Central Hotel, a super high-level hotel that cost at least 1,000 moles a night. I'm pretty sure you said the similar thing. From the limousines at the front entrance, important government figures and the wealthy and their bodyguards streamed through, probably since it was the weekend. This was the third time I came here. I wasn't even nervous, and the doorman recognized me. He flashed a friendly smile towards me as he opened the door. Without straying, I headed towards the cafe. The people who recognized me smiled as they led me there. Barton had his interest in me. He had his interest in my abilities. If so, then something should be possible. Be firm in readiness, do not waver. Soon, I stood before Barton. As usual, he sat comfortably at a chair, and today he was reading a real old-fashioned book. I apologize for the short notice. Hmm? Do not worry. It just so happened that my schedule was free. Barton spoke as he placed a bookmark in the book and looked at me. Barton's expression was firm as he looked at me, which was probably how it always was each time. You look frightened. I have a favor to ask. Barton offered me a chair, but I remained standing as I spoke. I would like you to invest in me. Invest? Barton repeated that as he once again offered me a chair. Well, first take a seat, as you are right now. This isn't a negotiation, but an entreaty. He grinned broadly as he offered me a chair for the third time. I sat down, and after Barton rang a bell, a waiter came out. Would you like some Irish coffee? As I started to say coffee, I corrected myself. Hot cocoa. These last few days, I would drink it alongside Hagana. As you wish. Not bothering with something as inelegant as writing it down, he bowed once and stepped away. I'm not surprised. Barton sighed deeply and leaned back in his chair. A small amount of silence fell. I spoke. I would like you to invest in me. Barton said that as he looked at me. Compared to the first time I saw him, his facial expression was intense. Invest in you is what you said, is it not? If that is the case, then rather than as the headhunter, Barton Cladweizen, I will have to look at this from the perspective of Barton Cladweizen, representative of the Britannica? It almost felt as if Barton's body swelled in size. It was the overpowering feeling given off by an influential person. I felt as if I'd be blown away if I didn't plant my feet firmly. Will you be able to turn a profit for me? A greedy loan shark taking away the last move from a poor man. Something like that would be no match for Barton's intensity. With large sums of money invested, this was an overwhelming ambition that only those who earned great deals of money could dare to have. When you're really wealthy, people bow their heads to you unconditionally. I gritted my teeth, then spoke. Permission to speak? Of course. I took a deep breath, then I spoke. I would like to borrow 300,000 mules. Barton raised an eyebrow at this. 300,000 mules? Well, that is... Barton started to say, but chortled I don't know how to pronounce it for that pronunciation. Excuse me, well, that is a surprising amount of money. It must be a joke. I pressed on. The annual interest rate is 20%. And the expected maturation date? If you are able to wait 10 years, then I will return it by then. If the annual rate is 20%, after 10 years it will multiply 5 times and become 900,000 mules. But where the earth, there are a scattering of white-collar workers who earn about that much over their lifetimes. Does the Britannica consider such earnings to be on the low end of the scale? At my words, Barton's mouth curled very slightly into the shape of a smile. Not bad. As Barton laughed, the drinks arrived. The cocoa is his. Barton gestured towards me politely, and hot cocoa was placed before me. Please enjoy. Ah. Barton raised his hand, and the waiter stood back. Barton reached into his coat, pulled out a small bottle of alcohol from his breast pocket, and poured the contents into his coffee cup. For times like these, you need alcohol for a bit more of a kick. He said it in a mischievous manner. After pouring out half the bottle's contents, Barton looked at the cup, then spoke. After 10 years, you will make 900,000 mules and become an impressive manager at the Britannica then? Or possibly independently. I stuck to my guns for the sake of doing so, but as much as I stuck to my guns, Barton's actions became sluggish. Well, in asking you to join me, a lesser individual suggesting 900,000 mules would be rather shocking and perhaps hard to imagine. In that case... But why 300,000 mules? I doubt you're going to use it to buy licorice or something. This wasn't small change. To Barton, it was a meaningless sum of money, but it wasn't small change to him. I readied myself and spoke. With that money, a lot of people can be saved. Ah. Barton breathed in and laughed. His large frame shook all over as he laughed. For the people of Shaw Diner Street, this was what you called an act of mercy. Of course, he would laugh. However, the gratitude you get could be sold later for much more. At my words, Barton's laughter stopped immediately. Oh? For various reasons, right now I am in possession of the gathered funds from a lot of people. Those people borrowed money from someone else, so these funds are all they have for the sake of paying off these debts. But it isn't enough to pay it off, so my intention is to gather funds to further grow that amount. Very wise. He said that in almost a ridiculing manner. Also, the lender those people received money from had borrowed money from someone else, and the origin of all that are a number of land speculators. Barton's face became serious. And then, apparently the place we all live in has become the target for a redevelopment project. The borrowers built their own homes and lived there holding the rights to the land. That is why, if this redevelopment project goes underway, they want to hold out until the government reimburses them, as the properties will become very valuable. But if the collectors come, they will take everything, leaving nothing. Thus, the 300,000 mules I wish to borrow, an investment, right? Barton corrected me, but there was kindness in it. Barton looked at me quietly. After redevelopment, that 300,000 mule investment will change over and become the debt of gratitude from the many people who hold those land rights. And that would be greater than the annual rate of 20%, you say? Correct. At my words, Barton let out a slight groan. So that's what you mean. What do you think? I asked once more. I got a response. Barton is not the sort who wouldn't understand this. In terms of gain and loss, without a doubt, these would be gains. Barton sipped on the Irish coffee he spiked, and for a bit, he held it to his lips and drank it down. The words that came out were not that what I would expect after drinking hot coffee. They were cold as ice. I must decline. No words. I was dumbfounded, and for a number of seconds I couldn't respond to that. Why not? No words. At my outburst, Barton frowned and put the cup down. It's a problem in how one lives, Barton said. Perhaps he was saying that it would just be best to let people in trouble ruin themselves instead? I don't want you to misunderstand me, but if I could, I would try to offer assistance. In that case, but I am Barton Cladwisen of the Britannica. The investment funds I've handled number in the several tens of billions of mules. It is not money on a global scale, but a fair amount. And thus, the pressure is high. On top of that, performance is expected. I don't know what he is talking about, but Barton had a zeal that couldn't keep me silent. I must be a thorough investor. If that is not the case, then I cannot serve in this capacity. Thus, it is a problem in how one lives. But what you tend to do must appear to be noble and right in your mind. Your report card would have a positive mark on it, however. Barton seemed to be lamenting their unreasonable principles of society as he said that. This is the kind of work of a drab branch in a drab bank. No words for him. I had no words to counter with, exactly. This is very complicated. Barton paid little heed to my exposed, dumbfounded expression as he quietly looked at the cup in his hand and continued. I won't say that it is a bad line of work. I don't think that it is a waste of time either. However, in doing something tepid like that, in just an instant it will come falling down. The place I am in is like that. Think about it. How much do you imagine it costs for all of us to live on the moon? It pales in comparison with the developed nations on Earth. Thus, I must decline. That is not an investment for me. It is not an investment for me at all. He said it succinctly. I have heard it before that when one goes about investing a large sum of money, they shouldn't let emotions control them. With a steely resolve and ironclad balls, even if the universe were to implode, an investment's performance must always hold steady. Barton was the incarnation of all that. Besides, if you aim to reach Schrödinger Street, you should have that kind of volition. An investor must consider the best possible investment, the best possible conditions, the best possible interval at all times. These are the words of the sole person I hold respect for, Mr. Infallible. He was a beast with personal assets of 80 billion euros. Compared to him, I felt small enough to be crushed by him. So, if you think you can save these people, then take on this challenge as an investor. Time. There isn't enough time. I looked at the steam from Coco as I said that. There was only 1 day left. Only 1 day left. I have 720,000 mools in funds. At the end of Monday, I need to reach 1 million mools at all costs. At the very least, I'd be fine with 900,000 mools. But it's not possible. Even if I desperately stack on as much profit as possible, 10% is the ceiling, so 10% is the ceiling, so I raised my face and looked at Barton. I did not want to admit that my vision was blurred because I had been crying. So, yet Barton's tone was icy cold. Investor, a successful investor. He's a pro among pros. An obvious concept, such as helping someone in trouble, leaving them indebted to you, was not something that he would agree with. I hung my head in shame, having nothing left to say. It was impossible. I was naive to think otherwise. Impossible, is that so? And that's what Barton said. Desperately stacked on profits, only 10%? Come on now. Since when did you lower yourself to that of a quant stooge? I raised my head and saw that Barton's angered face was scowling at me. I saw the last decision you made during the investment contest. It was rather impressive. That was it. That was the essence of a trader. With each move, one by one, your thinking became clear. It gave me shivers as I recalled my younger days. A failure is certainly a failure, but there are bets that one should continue to make. That is it. It brought back memories of the times I'd been beaten by my father as he lectured me. It really was mysterious as to why I would remember him now, of all possible times. Besides, if you don't have enough time, then you just need to find a shortcut. Huh? Barton then sipped on his coffee. The time I took you around and explained to you my investment techniques, do you remember what I said? I dug deep into the crevices of my mind. I had the confidence to have memorized it all. Yes. In that case, that's right, the building that we went to see. Do you remember the name of the company in that building? Huh? I don't know why he asked that question, but I answered immediately. Ring Tech. Huh? And then he suddenly raised his voice hysterically. Whoa now, are you alright? Ring Tech is a fine company, but the company we saw was a different one, was it not? But what was it? I can't quite remember. Wait a moment. Alright. I don't know. I'm gonna end it here shortly, but next part we're gonna find out next, because from here on out I'm not sure if he's going to be able to pay off the debt on time, aka how. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I'll record another one shortly, so see you then.